The topics and opinions expressed in the following show are solely those of the hosts and their guests and not those of W4CY Radio, its employees, or affiliates. We make no recommendations or endorsements for radio show programs, services, or products mentioned on air or on our web. No liability, explicit or implied, shall be extended to W4CY Radio or its employees or affiliates. Any questions or comments should be directed to those show hosts. Thank you for choosing W4CY Radio.
Welcome to the Ask the Expert show on W4CY Radio and Talk4 TV, where we bring you educational information from top local experts in the fields of legal, health, financial, and home improvement. Now sit back and listen to experts in family law, association law, hearing loss, business brokers, home care, along with many other topics. Now here are your hosts, Steve-O and Sophia.
Good afternoon. Welcome to another Ask the Expert show where we bring you the top experts in the field of legal, health, financial, and home improvement. It's a very special show today because you have been asking me for a bankruptcy show, for a tax relief show, and it just doesn't happen overnight. We found one of the top bankruptcy attorneys who also does tax relief, probably in the United States. He is one of the best. We are so glad we have him. And sit back. We're going to talk about bankruptcy today. Sad subject, but you know what? It happens to people. And it doesn't make you a bad person. And today we're going to educate you on bankruptcy. Let me welcome our expert attorney, Kevin Benjamin. Good afternoon, Kevin.
Good afternoon, Steve, and thank you for the kind words. Pleasure to be here.
Oh, I'm so glad. We have gotten so many emails and texts, people going, how come you don't have a bankruptcy show on? Look at the economy, and they're right, but there's a lot of bankruptcy attorneys out there. There's not a lot of great bankruptcy attorneys out there. And you are one of the greats, and we're so glad we have you. Tell everybody about your background and your firm.
Okay, well, I'm Kevin Benjamin, founder of Benjamin Legal Services. I've been concentrating in the area of consumer law, mostly bankruptcies, which relates to tax and other things as well, for over 30 years. And I'm based in Chicago. I have represented debtors in bankruptcy in numerous states, numerous federal jurisdictions, bankruptcy litigation, all that kind of stuff. We've been a big firm, we've been a small firm, we've been big, we've been small, we've been in a lot of jurisdictions. We're not doing that anymore, but I have a lot of experience in bankruptcy is federal law, but state exemptions. So it's a little unique to be representing debtors in different states, because even though it's bankruptcy, it's still different in different jurisdictions. Even in Illinois, there's 3 jurisdictions and they have local rules. So little things, change as well. But bankruptcy basically is a foundation to a consumer law firm. We handle business people as well, but a lot of things relate to bankruptcy. For example, over the years with the foreclosure crisis, a lot of loan modification people are out there, a lot of debt settlement people, debt consolidation, a lot of scams out there. And the thing is, being a bankruptcy lawyer, you could help people in those areas, either outside bankruptcy or even inside bankruptcy. Tax resolution as well. Obviously, we don't have time for today's show for that. We have a separate show we'll do on IRS representation and tax resolution, tax relief. But you could resolve and we're going to talk about it, you could resolve IRS taxes in various ways in different kinds of bankruptcy. So I think we're a little bit unique in the fact that we handle Chapter 7, Chapter 13, Chapter 11, all kinds of chapters, all kinds of people, inside of bankruptcy, outside of bankruptcy, litigation, the whole thing. So we're very experienced over at the firm.
Well, we just got our very first question, and I believe you already answered. They want to know, do you handle bankruptcy for businesses?
Yes, we do. So there's consumer, there's business. Business is more Chapter 11. There are some people want to do a Chapter 7 bankruptcy, but that's not really what you should maybe even do, or that's a minor. Chapter 11 restructuring of businesses, yes, absolutely. We handling some of those. We've gotten cases confirmed. That's a little more high end, a little more labor intensive. There's various kinds of Chapter 11. There's your regular Chapter 11. Then there's your business debtor Chapter 11. Now, you could be a business and be in a regular Chapter 11, but qualify as a small business. There's just different deadlines and statutes, that kind of stuff, different procedures. And then as of around 2020, there's what's called a sub 5 Chapter 11. And that's for someone doing commercial or business stuff, having more than half your debt business. It's more of a streamlined Chapter 11. So there's various kinds of Chapter 11, and it's usually a business, but an individual can do a Chapter 11 as well. Sometimes they have to, but an individual can do a Chapter 11. Sometimes we actually have some of those going as well. We can get into that as well. But yes, we handle business Chapter 11s, all kinds, regular, small business, and sub 5.
Well, I'm going to tell you one thing that we're going to get across on this show, as well as your tax relief show, is if somebody hires you, they're going to be able to sleep at night finally. Because we understand there's a lot of pressure when you've got financial problems or you have the IRS after you. But there is a way, and you'll find out with this show. You know, you talk about Chapter 7 and 13 and 11. Explain each one of the chapters to everybody.
Thank you. Well, first of all, you're right about the stress. One thing I love about this business is people come obviously very stressed out. It affects your marriages, your children, your life. The credit harassment is amazing. And after we take care of them, it's like a big weight off their shoulder. And they're like, how come I didn't see you before? So it's a pleasure to see them come out of bankruptcy or after it's over. And I'm used to the stress out people coming to me for help, and I love doing that. Now, to answer your question, there are all kinds of cases. So let's talk about the ones you wouldn't be doing. Chapter 9's for governments. You know, the city goes, Orange County, whatever goes, bankrupt.
Rarely hear about that.
Right. Chapter 12 is for farmers. There's a Chapter 15, like a cross-border. You're not doing that. There's Chapter 7, 13, and 11. Chapter 11 is usually a corporation restructuring of debt. They're basically stay in business, but they just, they can make millions of dollars, but they can't. It's your cash flow. It's a cash flow analysis, right? So they need some relief, maybe restructuring contracts, stuff like that. And you make different payments, different arrangements with creditors. You vote, you get a plan confirmed. Chapter 11 can be for an individual. That's could be as well, but Chapter 11 is usually a corporation, okay? Generally speaking, a person calls for a Chapter 7 or 13. A lot of people don't know there's all kinds of cases. People think, oh, you're going bankrupt. That just means you're in the street. You're giving away all your assets. You're done. That's not the case. The closest thing to that is the Chapter 7 bankruptcy. That's a straight bankruptcy. Chapter 13 is like a Chapter 11, but for a consumer that's more simpler, more affordable, a personal restructuring of debt. Think of it like a court-ordered bill consolidation, a bill consolidation that actually works by a federal court order with no interest, paying bills either 100% or sometimes zero, or depends on the dollar, or somewhere in between. The straight bankruptcy is the Chapter 7, and let's talk about the differences. So you want to have a lot of, there's all kinds of creditors, okay? So you have your secured debt and your unsecured debt, and what they call priority debt. Now, secured debt is simply like you got a mortgage, you got a car, you don't pay it. If you're not filing bankruptcy, you don't pay it. They take the car, they take the house. That's the security, right? Unsecured debt like credit cards, medical bills, those are your dischargeable debts, right? Then some debts are either unsecured or unsecured priority. For example, IRS taxes. Sometimes they're priority, sometimes they're not priority. What does that mean? Sometimes they're a combination too. So basically, this means that it's unsecured but not dischargeable. That'd be priority. Unsecured, non-priority is dischargeable in bankruptcy. Okay, student loans are unsecured, non-priority, but not dischargeable by statute. In other words, some debts aren't discharged. For example, debts incurred by fraud, child support, alimony, sometimes taxes. We can discuss that. Student loans, though there is a way to get student loans discharged in bankruptcy, but that's more complicated. So that's just a streamline. So you have your secured debt, your unsecured debt. On your secured debt in a Chapter 7 bankruptcy, you have the option, keep it and pay for it, or give it back and owe nothing. So for example, you got a car, maybe you want to keep it. It's a warranty, Sometimes the creditor will do what's called a reaffirmation agreement, which you kind of reaffirm the debt, re-obligate yourself. Sometimes I may tell you not to even sign that, just keep paying, but that's a different story. There's a thing called redemption, where you just cash the creditor out for value of the car. So most cars, for example, are depreciating assets. So maybe, like we have one right now, the creditor's taking $200, just want to redeem it. Pay him, you get the title, that's it. So maybe you had no insurance and you got in a car accident. Now the car, you owe $20,000 on the car and it's worth $200. You may just want to surrender it, because in bankruptcy, your underlying debt, even if it's a mortgage on a house, you sign a promissory note. That's your personal obligation. That's unsecured. You got a car note, right? The car note, the note, it's unsecured. The security is simply the car. The creditor only has the right to the security if you want to give it back, or if you don't pay, then they take it. But if they take it, your underlying obligation is gone unless you signed a reaffirmation agreement. So that's a Chapter 7, okay? Chapter 13 is more of a court order bill consolidation, personal restructuring of debt. One of the main reasons, and we'll discuss this over the show, is stopping foreclosure. Usually the car is behind, or the car was taken, you want to get it back, or they're about to stab the car. We get phone calls a lot now, the last 6 months. People put the car, because of the car values were going up, the car repos were happening. But basically, you could stop a foreclosure and you file a personal plan of reorganization. So let's say you're in a foreclosure, you stop the foreclosure, you do what's called a cure and maintain plan, and we can talk about it more in a few minutes. You maintain the current mortgage payment and you pay the arrears over 5 years. And I get a federal court order where the creditor must take that. No one knows that because the creditors didn't tell you. They go into foreclosure court, they tell you got to pay the whole thing. They won't take monthly payments. The state court's not going to help you. They can't do anything about it. People think they're screwed. That's not it. I got a phone call just last night. They got a sale on the 27th. I can stop it. You know what I'm saying? So wow. no one knew that. She was in tears and stuff like that. So, you got to be good faith to be able to, to do things, but we'll do it. So basically, Chapter 7 generally is getting out of debt with some exceptions. 13 is paying it back either in full or in part or a combination. Let's say you're behind on the car. We're following a 13 to save the car. You're paying the car back, right? But maybe you would have qualified for Chapter 7, but that won't save the car. But you got $30,000 in credit card debt. Well, you could actually pay pennies on the credit card debt, let's say 5 cents, maybe even less, but let's say my example, 5 cents on the dollar, and you keep the car. So it's kind of like doing a 95% Chapter 7 along with paying the secured debt in full. So it's still a Chapter 13, but not all the bills have to be paid in full. There is a liquidation test based upon your non-exempt equity, stuff like that. So when you file bankruptcy, you actually keep all your assets. Otherwise, you may not want to file Chapter 7. You may want to file 13. It's federal law, but state exemptions. It's not like in the TV or in the movies people keep their house and cars all the time in bankruptcy. You keep your job, you keep your income. So if you're going to lose something, we're going to go over that first because maybe we're doing 11 or 13 or a combination thereof. Or maybe you want to lose the debt, or maybe it's just so minor that you're not going to lose it anyway. So that's why you have a lawyer. You're saying so. That's basically the bill consolidation or straight bankruptcy, and that's really the difference.
Kevin, we just got another text. They want to know, what if you owe the IRS money?
Great question.
You file bankruptcy?
Yeah, and there's a lot of misconceptions about that. So people tell you, usually non-lawyers or people on Google, IRS tax that they claim is not dischargeable. Well, generally speaking, as the rule, probably not. There is exceptions to that, though. Okay, so and a lot of people don't even know the exceptions, or they Google it and say, well, if it's 3 years old, it's dischargeable. That's not true at all either. It's a more detailed analysis, but basically each tax year is separate, and they have to be income taxes. You can't file a fraudulent return to try to evade taxes. You had to have filed the tax return for the last 2 years that it was due before you filed bankruptcy. The tax had to be assessed within 240 days of filing bankruptcy, and the return had to be due within 3 years. There's a whole kind of test. And then also it gets more complicated. There's what they call tolling events, right? So maybe at a prior Chapter 7, whatever, that there's a tolling event that on some of those dates, that's, whether it becomes dischargeable or not, or maybe you filed an installment agreement or offer and compromise, and there's different tolling dates for that too. But that's why you have a lawyer. So what we do, if you got income, like someone comes in, they got a couple thousand in income tax, but they're filing because they got like all other stuff. It's not really a big deal. But we have a lot of people that have like, hundreds of thousands of dollars in taxes. And they say, well, I want to file now. Well, wait a second. I'm your lawyer. My job is to say, analyze the situation, advise you, counsel you. What are your options, the pros and cons of each, and how do we do bankruptcy planning? It's kind of like financial planning. You got a lot of IRS debt for different tax years. We got to analyze each year to see, is it dischargeable in bankruptcy? And if not, when? So for example, you got $100,000 in taxes, right? But there are different tax years, 20 grand, 10 grand, 40 grand. Let's look at that and say, okay, well, these aren't going to be dischargeable for a couple of years, and you got this issue right now. Okay, fine. At least that's not dischargeable, right? But let's say of that 100 grand or even 200 grand, whatever it is, we say, wait a second, a couple of those years are dischargeable now. Terrific. But there's another $20,000, $30,000, $40,000 that could be discharged if I file the case next week, next month, on this day. Do we have time? Okay, so are you losing your house? We're doing a 13. I got to file the case now. Different story. But you're doing a Chapter 7. Let's wait 6 weeks. Get out of 100,000 more in debt. You know what I'm saying? So yes, you can discharge taxes in bankruptcy. You got to analyze it to see priority versus non-priority. And the IRS, by the way, they know the rules. That little basic test I was just giving you, there's obviously exceptions. You got to roll up your sleeves and get into it. That's my job. But it's just really a calculation, and the tolling events, and it is what it is. So we could actually help people discharge debts. And let's say you can't. You could pay it back in a Chapter 13, either in full or in part, depending upon whether or not it's dischargeable or not. Or you could do non-bankruptcy things like we talk about on the tax show, offering compromise, installment agreement, currently not collectible, stuff like that. So then there's, of course, the issue of are there tax liens in there? How are those resolved? And that's obviously more detailed. If the IRS has a tax lien on you before you file, the lien stays, but some of those assets may be worth nothing, so it may not really matter. They can't put a lien on you once you file, right? And then if you're doing a Chapter 13, if some of those are, if they're non-priority debts, they could be discharged in the Chapter 13. So, and by the way, Chapter 13 is other, what they call a super discharge. And like, for example, marital settlement agreements, property settlement agreements that wouldn't be dischargeable in a Chapter 7 bankruptcy if you're getting divorced, can be in a Chapter 13. So that's another thing. If you're getting divorced, you've got a property settlement agreement, we got to look at it to see what is in the nature of child support and what is not, because the divorce lawyers always say it's non-dischargeable, and sometimes it's not, but oftentimes it is. So
what if person signs up with you? Do you then talk to all the creditors? Do they have to talk to the creditors anymore?
No, that's a great question. They do not talk to the creditors. Once they sign up with me, I'm your lawyer. Okay, you sign the retainer agreement. We can work out some kind of payment terms if you need that. You then refer the calls to me. Okay, usually the creditors will call to verify because, everyone says, well, I'm filing bankruptcy. They're not stupid. They're going to they're going to check.
Of course.
So they also check out the firm. They maybe just Google us, what I'm saying, or me, are you really a bankruptcy lawyer? Maybe your cousin's a lawyer, what I'm saying? Like, oh, he does employment law. He's not filing, that kind of stuff. So, okay, so you're a bankruptcy law firm. Kevin, are you retained? They said they're retaining you. Have they? If they have, I say yes. They say, what do you think you're going to do? We say, well, this could be filed tomorrow, or this could be a couple months. And they just call back. So we try to respond to those so they stop calling our client, but also we try to file the cases right away. I mean, even in Chapter 7, like they have this law that if you file Chapter 7 for your client, you discharge yourself as a bankruptcy attorney. It's the most ridiculous thing in the world. There's ways around it. You got to do not around it. It's legal, and depending on the jurisdiction, whether you could do a pre-filing contract and a post-filing contract and take payments. And like in Northern Illinois, actually you can. In different jurisdictions, some say you do, some say you can't. It's a whole to-do. It's in Congress right now. Some of our bankruptcy groups are lobbying to try to clean that up because it's ridiculous. Because in other words, you come to me, you're being hounded by creditors. Like back in the day, in the 1990s when I started, it was all no money down. You come in, make a deposit, make payments, we file your case. Your car's not being repoed, your house is not going anywhere, you're not being garnished anymore, no one's suing you, no one's collecting. You're happy, And now, of course, I'm happy. No one's garnished, and you can make payments to me. Everyone's happy, right? And then Congress, in their wisdom, decided, wait a second. Let's make it hard for the debtors, okay? So in other words, they try to make you pay your lawyer in full. Well, if you're making payments, it takes months to pay you, and you're being garnished. What good is it? You're paying me, you're being garnished. The creditors are calling you, they're calling me. What a mess. So that's absolutely ridiculous. But we work with people.
Can the creditors go after, let's say you're married. Now, when you file, do you file individually or do you have to file as a couple?
That's a question we get all the time with the married couples. Think of it, it's like doing your tax returns. You must disclose when you file bankruptcy, are you married or not? So obviously in this example, married, filing individually or jointly, just like a tax return. You can file separately if you want or not file. So you don't have to. Now, a couple, if you're married, okay, you can file a joint case. It just saves you money. And like someone called a couple of days ago, the wife has a lot of medical bills. So the question was, does she need to file? If so, I can just put her on his case because he's filing for a different reason. It's no extra fee, and just jointly cover the case. Otherwise, they don't have to file. Only one person could file. Now that one person gets the discharge, not the other person. On a Chapter 7 or 13, there's different reasons. The person not filing is what they call the non-filing spouse, NFS, right? So when you file bankruptcy, like in Chapter 7, there's an income limit. You can only do it every 8 years. They call it the means test. So you still count the household income, okay? But also the non-filing spouse may have debts that aren't being discharged, but they're like, $300 a month student loan, $500 a month on credit cards. So there's deductions you can get as well. You just got to disclose everything. So they're the non-filing spouse. Their income and expenses will be on the budget, but they're not liable on the case, and they don't get protection. However, when you file a case, let's say you file a Chapter 13, there's what they call the co-debtor stay. So let's say whether it's your spouse or your friend or your mother or just somebody, right? You have a joint, somebody co-sign a loan for you. It could be somebody from your school buddy, right? Your high school buddy or something like that, right? They are covered under the co-debtor stay. So they are not filing the case, obviously, and they can't be a joint case because they're not married, but they are also covered that way. And so would a non-filing spouse if they're because a non-filing spouse may be on the mortgage, maybe on the car note as well, that kind of stuff. And that's all being restructured and taken care of. So the quick answer is they do not have to file together, but they can.
I knew this was going to happen, Kevin.
Yeah.
This, first of all, wonderful job. This is your first show with us.
Yeah.
And Kevin will be doing bankruptcy every month. Tomorrow we're actually doing tax relief. But the way you answer questions I would want you representing me, because you make it so understandable. You don't talk over it. And that's so important when you're hiring an attorney, that they're not talking over your head. You understand them. And bottom line, Kevin is really good at what he does. Kevin, give everybody your phone number and your website address.
Okay. Kevin Benjamin with Benjamin Legal Services, benjaminlaw.com, B like boy, ENJAMIN like Nancy, LAW.com, 312-853-3100. That's 312-853-3100. You could call, you could email, check out the attorneys at benjaminlaw.com. You can email. You can even go and set an appointment directly with me at calendly.com/Kevin Benjamin, if people are familiar with that software with Calendly. But otherwise, just call. You'll probably get me. I'll be the one giving you the consultation. Somebody in my office may ask you some basic questions on your assets and liabilities just to help me out before I get with you. But basically, there's no call center. I don't have a bunch of associates that are doing volume, trying to just rush you through a case. I want the basic information that I'll sit down with you either in the office or by Zoom or phone, or however you want to do it. And we'll go over your option or the options, the pros and cons. What do you qualify for? What's the best thing? What's the date we should file? What's the planning, the exemption planning, the whole thing. Happy to do it. I love this kind of work, and I look forward to anybody who needs help. Give me a call. The consultation's free, so call me.
Well, pretty good, because this is our first show, and you already got 2 texts ready saying what a great show today.
Oh, thank you.
We appreciate it. I know the listeners and viewers appreciate it. And hey, we'll see you tomorrow morning.
Will do. Okay. Thank you very much. Thanks for having me. Bye-bye.
That's Kevin. He is really an excellent bankruptcy attorney, tax relief. And Kevin will be back with us again tomorrow on Ask the Experts. And we'll be back with you again next week with more Ask the Experts. Take care, everybody.
Thanks for tuning in today to the Ask the Expert show on W4CY Radio and Talk4 TV. Tune in next week and every week to hear more from our experts on personal injury, insurance, air condition repairs, estate planning, Medicare, and many other topics in the areas of legal, health, financial, and home improvement. See you next week.